Chapter 15. The Truth. It's early morning. I'm finally home. Exhausted and worried. Clara is waiting for me in the bubble bed, frightened. Her face, previously hidden by the half-light, lights up as I approach. I join her and take her in my arms to comfort her. I hold her close. Then she inspects me on all sides, looking for a wound. She soon notices a mark on my shoulder. A fine scar, a reminder of my encounter with the tiger. She runs her finger over the line that has formed. I tell her, "Don't worry, I'm fine. But it may not last. I've recovered some very special files. Sensitive files. I had to flee in the face of a show of force I'd never seen before. I need to know what this information, discovered at the State Bank, is." Her face instantly sinks into almost palpable anguish. She questions me with a frightened look, and I react immediately. I don't know why that file was there. In any case, I made a copy. She is alarmed. "Nathan. You're going to be a wanted man. What's going to happen?" Fear and a touch of anger alter her beautiful eyes. I grab her by the shoulders and say, "Calm down. This afternoon, I have an appointment with Caliguian. He'll pay me and then we'll talk. We've already got to find out what's in these files." I leave the bubble bed again, and grab the microdisc I'd put in a safe place. I insert it into my chest and close my eyes. I need to concentrate. I mentally order the data to be transmitted to my visual cortex. Almost instantly, a long list of documents appears in my field of vision. Clara has joined me. I telepathically transmit the content of the documents to her. Many of them concern the main political parties, recapitulating their history from their creation to their current activities. Others take a closer look at the organization charts of these movements and their leaders. One title catches my eye. Denver Conference, Discourse on the Constitution of a Political Front for the Annihilation of Africa. "What's this?" asks Clara, who seems as surprised as I am. I order the document to be read. A video starts up, showing the meeting on Jekyll Island, November 22, 2110. For 2 days, a secret assembly of our planet's leading financiers discussed and agreed on the direction the world economy should take to serve their common interests. The list of participants is kept secret. No information can leak out. Address by the chairman of the International Monetary Commission, Mr. Noam Chomsky. Ladies and gentlemen. As you know, in August of this year, President Sony Matsushita, governor of Epoxia, launched the Universal Cybernetics Program. The aim of this important program was twofold: to facilitate the establishment of social peace in the territory, and to give a new boost to economic activity by creating a powerful molecular transplant industry in Epoxia. The success of this ambitious program rests largely on Epoxia's ability to export this technology to its international partners. Commercial agreements have been with the Grohl government for the export of this technology, equipment and personnel. But despite various negotiations between our embassies and those of Africa, the ancient lands categorically refused to join this program, pointing to its lack of humanistic foundation. To this day, this argument is completely inadmissible. The example of one of the 3 blocks refusing this program appears detestable in terms of popularity. In fact, it would run the risk of derailing its implementation in the other 2 blocks. As a result, a major decision has to be taken, namely the fictitious disappearance of Africa. Generally speaking, our social modeling processes suffice. Here's a reminder of the strategies and techniques commonly employed. 1. The diversion strategy. An essential element of social control, the diversion strategy consists in diverting public attention from important issues and changes decided by political and economic elites, through a continual deluge of distractions and insignificant information. The strategy of diversion is also essential to prevent the public from becoming interested in essential knowledge in the fields of science, economics, psychology, neurobiology and cybernetics. Keeping the public's attention distracted, away from real social problems, captivated by subjects of no real importance. 2. Create problems, then offer solutions. This method is also known as problem reaction solution. First, we create a problem, a situation designed to elicit a certain public reaction, so that the public itself will demand the measures we want it to accept. For example, allowing urban violence to develop, or organizing bloody attacks, so that the public will demand security laws at the expense of freedom. Or creating an economic crisis to make people accept the rollback of social rights and the dismantling of public services as a necessary evil. 3. The strategy of downgrading. To get people to accept an unacceptable measure, all you have to do is apply it gradually, over a period of 10 years. This is how radically new socio-economic conditions were imposed during the 1980s and 1990s. Mass unemployment, job insecurity, flexibility, offshoring, wages that no longer ensured a decent income, these were all changes that would have provoked a revolution had they been applied brutally. 4. The strategy of deferment. Another way of gaining acceptance for an unpopular decision is to present it as painful but necessary, obtaining the public's agreement in the present for application in the future. It's always easier to accept a future sacrifice than an immediate one. Firstly, because the effort doesn't have to be made immediately. Secondly, because the public tends to naively hope that everything will be better tomorrow, and that the required sacrifice can be avoided. Finally, it gives the public time to get used to the idea of change, and to accept it with resignation when the time comes. 5. Address the public as if they were small children. Most advertising aimed at the general public uses discourse, arguments, characters and a particularly infantilizing tone, often verging on the debilitating, as if the viewer were a toddler or a mentally handicapped person. The more you try to deceive the spectator, the more you adopt an infantilizing tone. Why? If you address a person as if they were 12 years old, then, because of suggestibility, they will, with some probability, have a response or reaction as uncritical as those of a 12-year-old. 6. Appeal to the emotional rather than the reflective. Appealing to the emotional is a classic technique for short-circuiting rational analysis, and therefore people's critical faculties. What's more, using the emotional register opens the door to the unconscious to implant ideas, desires, fears, impulses, or behaviors. 7. Keeping the public ignorant and stupid. Ensure that the public is incapable of understanding the technologies and methods used to control and enslave them. The quality of education given to the lower classes must be of the poorest kind, so that the gulf of ignorance which isolates the lower classes from the upper classes is and remains incomprehensible to the lower classes. 8. Encouraging the public to wallow in mediocrity. Encourage the public to find it cool to be stupid, vulgar, and uneducated. 9. Replace rebellion with guilt. Make people believe that they alone are responsible for their misfortune, because of the inadequacy of their intelligence, abilities, or efforts. So, instead of rebelling against the economic system, the individual self-deprecates and feels guilty, leading to a state of depression, one of the effects of which is the inhibition of action. And without action, there can be no revolution. 10. Know people better than they know themselves. In recent years, the dazzling progress of science has widened the gap between public knowledge and that held and used by the ruling elites. Thanks to biology, neurobiology, and applied psychology, the system has achieved advanced knowledge of the human being, both physically and psychologically. The system has come to know the average person better than he knows himself. This means that, in the majority of cases, the system has greater control and power over individuals than the individuals themselves. Most of the time, exercising these 10 principles is enough. But as far as the Universal Cybernetics Program is concerned, our proposals are as follows. Inform the populations of Epoxia and Grol that a violent internal war has just broken out on the African continent. This purely imaginary war could be caused by territorial quarrels. After a few months of fighting, the conflict escalates, culminating in nuclear strikes on Africa. In Africa, in order to declare the area contaminated, no longer allowing any human or plant life. At the same time, our borders will have to be reinforced under the pretext of national security. This identity-based withdrawal will also prevent any unwanted intrusion into the ancient lands. In this way, we can preserve the secrecy of our real situation. We believe it is essential to take such measures, however radical they may be. The success of the Universal Cybernetics program depends on it. And we cannot tolerate any counterexamples. That's why I'm asking you to endorse these proposals with your vote. The video then freezes. I collapse in astonishment, totally stunned by the magnitude of the lie. We're devastated. We realize that we are nothing but stupid puppets, unaware that we have been so simply manipulated. Epoxia makes me want to vomit, says Clara. To get everyone to agree to become a machine, they've made an entire part of the world, an entire continent, billions of men and women, disappear from our consciousness. And all this simply to satisfy some people's appetite for power. Clara went on, looking thoughtful. If they could wipe out a part of the world so easily in people's minds, it certainly wasn't their first try. There have certainly been other manipulations, other lies in the past. I suddenly react. My father? My father died in battle during the conflict against the Gruul, a few years after Africa disappeared. But the circumstances of his death have never been very clear. All Gabby and I knew was that he died with honors. The homeland grateful to an exemplary soldier, who gave his life for the good of the citizens of Epoxia, that's what's inscribed on his grave. But I now believe that he died for a very different cause from the one presented to us. Clara is worried and already imagining what I'm about to do. What do you mean? I confirm her fears. My father would never have participated in such a plan. I'm sure they've hidden something from us. I'll have to go back and find out. Clara bursts into tears. No. It's too risky, Nathan. Don't go back. You'll be killed. We discuss at length the many risks involved in such an action. Our discussion changes. It evolves into diametrically opposed feelings. Clara goes from support to total anger. She suddenly understands that we are now in imminent danger. That's my girl. She's explosive and doesn't hesitate to use all the grudges and arguments from the past to blame me for our present risk. And she's right. I shouldn't have got those files. She insists, again and again. I remember situations from the past. Certain situations where her insistence had reached record levels. There's a long history to our arguments. Our relationship isn't all libidinous love and artificial sunsets. Clara has a particularly keen sense of persistence. One of the recurring arguments we had was her questions about my mother. No matter how hard I tried to make her understand that I had almost no memory of her, she wouldn't believe me. It had become a matter of mistrust for her. She thought I must be trying to hide something from her. And that if I didn't tell her everything about my mother, she wouldn't be able to trust me on anything else. Each time, everything was called into question because of this. When my father disappeared, things became even more conflicted. To be honest, though, my memories were particularly hazy. I even had great difficulty visualizing the image of my mother's face. Even I began to worry about this lack of memory. One day the argument got so heated that we considered shock therapy. The cost was exorbitant, but the sheer frustration of all this tension justified the investment. It has to stop. No more arguing, no more blaming. I'm suffocating. I might as well use the most effective means medicine has to offer. Even if the cost is considerable, it seems to me that memory therapy is the answer to our questions. The procedure is expensive but fast, simple and almost 100% effective. Everything will happen here at home. In the space of 10 minutes, it'll be as if I'd been through 10 years of conventional psychotherapy. I connect to the network and by the therapy. Part of the house suddenly becomes a replica of a real doctor's surgery. The furniture is reconfigured. It changes shape. From the floor emerges a custom-made recliner that offers me the utmost comfort. I let myself go in this cocoon of softness. The door to our cell has just let in a metal cube, 1 meter square. It's the treatment device sent to us by the laboratory I've chosen. The treatment begins. The cube, like a real psychologist, stands slightly behind me. It opens various hatches from which a whole array of specialized equipment emerges. A carrier beam directs discs onto my arms, chest, eyes, and forehead. The discs on my arms diffuse the psychotropic drugs that plunge me into a deep trance. The disc on my chest takes my vital measurements. And the discs in my eyes and forehead take control of my brain. The program is supposed to retrieve and rebuild my memories. The technique is in fact an active intrusion of the hippocampus. Logically, in a few minutes we should finally have some answers. Time passes, and after 8 minutes of investigation into the heart of my neurons, the machine is ready. Neurons, the machine delivers its verdict. System failure. Procedure aborted. Memories absent. New drugs injected, I come to. Clara, tears in her eyes, says to me, "I'm so sorry. You weren't lying. You don't remember." It took all this for her to finally believe me. Today, her conviction is just as strong. But my wife's tears and reluctance don't break my resolve. I'm determined to find out the real reason for my father's death. But suddenly our lives are turned upside down. An alarm sounds.